Alright, my little math friends, we are back again in Chapter 12. We talked about probability the day before. Now we're going to look at experimental probability. Okay, so let me tell you what that is. Experimental probability is where we calculate the actual probability. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing like yesterday, calculate the actual probability of the results from an experiment. Okay, so we're actually going to conduct experiments to find out the probability of something actually happening. Okay, and remember probability, we talked about it yesterday, it's a fraction. Most of the times it's shown as a fraction. Okay, and on this fraction, the number on top is what it is, what we're looking for, like how many something is going to happen, like how many times something will be heads, how many times you pick a number, how many times a certain marble out of a bag, whatever it is, it's how many over the total possible. Okay, so that's what probability is. So now let's take a look at, we're going to use this in an example here. Here is our first experiment that happened. Okay, Martin has a bag of marbles. He removed one marble at random, recorded the color, and then placed the marble back in the bag. Okay, so here's his chart here. He has these 4 different colors of marbles. He drew them out of a bag, put it back, and he recorded this every time that he got a color out as part of his experiment. He repeated this process several times and recorded his results in the table. Alright, find the experimental probability of drawing each color. Alright, so what we want to do is find the probability that he got of picking these colors when he drew those marbles out of a bag. Alright, so one thing we don't have right now is we don't know how many marbles were actually in the bag. We don't know how many reds were there or how many blues or how many greens. So we need to get this here, the total possible, so we can make our fraction. So what we're going to do is add up the total amount of times that he drew these marbles out of the bag. So we're going to add these all together. 12, 10, 15, 13, and you could have added them right here. I wrote them off to the side. So if we add those all up, what we get is 50. Okay, and that's going to be our total that we're going to use for our total possible. Okay, because he drew those marbles out 50 times, and that's going to be the total amount of times. So from there, we're going to calculate the probability of each color. So let's start with red. Alright, and if we wanted to calculate the probability of red, we have 12 reds out of 50 possible. That's how many he drew. So 12 out of 50. Alright, and if we divided that to get our percentage, if we take 12 divided by 50, that could get us 24%. Alright, I'm not going to show the details for calculating percent because we've done that in other chapters, and we did that in a review in the last lesson. So we'll just show it like this so that we can get through this. If you got questions on how to get percent still, please let me know, and we can work that out. Okay, so here's our fraction, there's our percent. So for red, it was a 24% chance of getting red. That's the probability. Let's take a look at blue. Okay, so for blue, we have 10 marbles drawn that were blue. So we got 10 out of 50, which is going to give us 20%. Alright, the next color we have is green. And we have 15 out of 50. And that will get us 30% when you calculate that out. And the last one we have is yellow. And that gives us, we had 13 yellows out of 50. So that would get us 26%. Okay, so that's the probability of every single color being drawn out of the bag. And if you look, they're all pretty close to each other. 24%, 20%, 30%, 26%. They're all pretty close to each other. So what can we say about that? What can we say? What conclusion do we have about this experiment? What can we say? Well, because all of them had about the same probability, about the same percentage, we can guess that there's probably, we'll say likely, same amount of each marble in the bag. Okay, so we don't know how many there were of each marble in the bag, but based on the percentages and the fractions we got when Martin did this experiment, they all pretty much came out to close to the same numbers. We got the same percentages, so we can say that there's probably about the same amount of each marble in the bag. There might be a little more of one marble, a little less of another, but based on these experiment results and the probability we got, that's one thing that we could say, because all these numbers were about the same. Alright, so that's how you calculate experimental probability, and then you can look at those numbers and come up with some sort of conclusion to say about that based on the numbers that you got. Alright, so that is 12.2, experimental probability. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time in class, and don't forget to do your try this problem at the end of the lesson.